Studios have been trying to nostalgia bait us for decades now to reinvigorate once great franchises with little to no success. But Cobra Kai, a show that started off as a YouTube original, managed to do it on a shoestring budget with just 6 seasons. So what is it that this show is doing better than people who are throwing millions and billions of dollars to make dinosaurs cool again? So today let's break down what made Cobra Kai so great, how it reinvigorated a 30-year-old franchise, and how it beat Disney and many others to finally crack the code to legacy. See, the strange thing about nostalgia is that it has a shelf life. Take Star Wars for example. In the past few years, the sequel trilogy and the Disney Plus shows have brought back a shit ton of characters. From Boba Fett to Obi-Wan to Anakin Skywalker himself, everyone's made a comeback. But Star Wars is just as dead, and even more so since before the sequel trilogy. Because they only banked on nostalgia. The creators of Cobra Kai very quickly realized that nostalgia can only work with the purpose of growth, giving the audience a new perspective and a chance to experience a new story with their beloved characters. Again, they knew when to give the audience nostalgia and when to take it away. Alright, let's break it down. So in the first episode, when the show picks up the story 30 years later, both Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence are exactly where we thought they would be. While Johnny is constantly lamenting the loss of his good old days, Daniel is constantly trying to relive them. Both these characters are stuck
How do you do, fellow kids?
in time. But as we've learned, nostalgia wears off pretty quickly. And before this gets too tedious, the creators flip the switch and change everything that the audience thought they knew about these characters. After all the hardships that Johnny has been through in his life, he's not as gruff as we thought he would be. He's become a little bit more understanding. Just a little bit. While on the flip side, Daniel, who was the fighter for justice throughout his life, has let it get to his head. Surprisingly, this character is a little arrogant and a little cocky now. See, just like the audience, the characters do carry all of the memories and all of the baggage from the past. But they have changed in very realistic ways. Throughout the show, these characters are discovering just as much about themselves as the audience is about them. Karate Kid as a franchise was always about people growing up and learning about themselves while performing phenomenal roundhouse kicks. And thankfully, Cobra Kai does not forget that for one bit. Now, growth is only possible by challenging ourselves. And for this, Cobra Kai decides to challenge the very ethos that the Karate Kid franchise was built on.
Nice.
See, the Karate Kid franchise was always built on a clear-cut idea of good versus bad. And this is the idea that Cobra Kai challenges. Let's break it down again. Starting off with a new lead character, as we saw, Johnny Lawrence was in the dumps. The last good part of his life he remembers was when he was a part of Cobra Kai. Now, Kreese fucked it all up for him, but Johnny thinks that he can kind of do better. So when he finds a nerd, Miguel Diaz, that he takes a liking to, Johnny decides to bring back Cobra Kai with the very same motto. Strike first, strike hard, no mercy. Through Miguel, Cobra Kai becomes very popular and people start flocking to Johnny's dojo. Johnny Lawrence finally finds a new purpose and decides to turn his life around. But it doesn't take long for everything to fall apart again. Very quickly, Johnny realizes that through his teachings of Cobra Kai, his students are becoming exactly like he was 30 years ago. Assholes and bullies. Johnny finally has to come to terms with the fact that Cobra Kai might actually be the problem. But Daniel LaRusso has no idea what's going on in Johnny's head. All he sees is that Cobra Kai, the entity he fought throughout his teenage years, is back in the valley. He sees the snake and he sees blood. Now, Mr. Miyagi's teachings were always about peace and defense. But Mr. Miyagi's message of defense, fueled by Daniel's quest for revenge, ends up becoming a message of hate in his students. So much so that this time around, his students, including his own son Anthony, end up becoming the bullies instead. One of the most popular neutral good characters in all of pop culture now has to grapple with the fact that he kind of has become the villain. Daniel LaRusso is now the antagonist to Johnny Lawrence's protagonist, completely turning the ethos of Karate Kid on its head. Both the characters now have to realize that in the real world there are no concrete answers. Good and bad are defined by circumstances and the choices that people take. And it's not just the main characters. Using this idea, the show keeps shifting characters from the good to the bad camps and vice versa as the story keeps evolving. Lifelong villains like Chosen, Kreese, Mike Barnes, Johnny Lawrence, they come towards the side of the good, while characters who are lifelong heroes like Mr. Miyagi and Daniel come towards the side of the bad, eventually meeting in the middle in the grey. For a story set in the world of the Karate Kid, this was such a nuanced idea and a risky one at that, but one that paid off extremely well. Star Wars also tried to do a very similar thing, but for some reason that backfired. I mean, all they did was make Luke Skywalker kind of a joke, make the Jedis kind of creepy, and made the story of Anakin Skywalker being the chosen one kind of invalid. I wonder why that didn't work. But no, Cobra Kai doesn't do the same thing. It doesn't invalidate the past, but it adds depth to it. From Kenny to Johnny, by the end, every character has layers upon layers upon layers of depth. But at the end of the day, legacy can very easily die off if it's not passed on. And thankfully, Cobra Kai does not forget this for even 1 minute. Amidst all of the drama between the older characters, somehow Cobra Kai still had the time to make the new characters, the next generation of Karate Kids, shine. I mean, for a show that has Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence coming back to our screens after 30 years, the fact that there are die-hard fan bases for the Binary Bros, for Hawk, for Miguel Diaz, for Robbie, that just proves the point. Sure, the world of these new characters is built on the shoulders of giants. These stories are affected by the 30-year-old rivalries, but the fact is, they are not limited to it. Bullying, love lives, love triangles, cheating, figuring out what's right and wrong, everything that should be a part of a high school drama, which at the heart of it the show is still present. From Miguel to Hawk to Robbie to Sam to Tori to Kenny to Anthony, every character has their own strengths and their own flaws that they grapple with throughout the series. Not once are these stories pushed to the side for the older ones. Every character gets their moment in the spotlight when the story demands it. There is no Finn in the story. Finn who had something to say to Rey. Finn who was force sensitive. Finn who should have been a Jedi. Finn whose story about a stormtrooper becoming a Jedi was so cool and a story that should have been followed up on, but for some reason Disney just decided not to. One of the most important jobs of a legacy sequel is to build a new set of characters that the audience can fall in love with. And because these characters are treated as the leads of the show as well, it doesn't feel like just another legacy sequel, but a fresh new story in the same world we all fell in love with. Just because we're talking about moving on from the past doesn't mean we can't reference it. And the show references it a lot. Almost every character from the first 3 movies has made a comeback. Popular moments have been referenced time and time again, and even whole scenes have been taken, recontextualized, and added to the new series. But Cobra Kai weaves these moments in so realistically and so logically that it never feels off. You see, the show decides that whenever a character is coming back, the story needs to demand it, and if we're referencing something, there needs to be a build-up to it. Every reference feels like the show has earned it, and it shows that the creators loved the movies just as much as the audience did. I mean, when the show started on YouTube, who would have thought that we would see Johnny Lawrence in the Miyagi-Do and Daniel LaRusso in the Cobra Kai Black? At the end of the day, when we're watching a legacy sequel, we want to see these characters and these stories evolve. Because if you reduce them just to nostalgia beats, they become just a shell of their former selves. And that is where Cobra Kai excelled. I mean, the show was so campy, so melodramatic, so stupid at times. But the real moments, the emotional moments were so well done, and the character arcs were so well done that it always felt like it was worth it to watch the show. There are so many good stories in this 6-season arc that it's amazing that the writers actually pulled it off. Now that Cobra Kai is over, I think it safely cements itself as one of the best legacy sequels ever made. Cobra Kai didn't just revitalize a 30-year-old franchise, but it gave it new life. I'm going to miss this show and this cast and crew so much. It's because of the success of this show that we're getting the new sequel to the reboot of The Karate Kid with Jackie Chan. It's highly unlikely that any of these characters make an appearance in the new Karate Kid Legends movie, so I guess we'll wait 30 more years for the sequel series where Miguel Diaz and Robbie Keane become the new senseis. That's a long wait. That's a long, long wait, and that makes me sad. Yeah. But that's okay. Because if you forgot, let me remind you one last time. You see, Cobra Kai
never dies.
And that was the dump of the week. I've been watching Cobra Kai since 2016, and the way it ended has fulfilled all of my hopes and expectations I had from the season. If you've seen Cobra Kai, comment down below and let me know what your favorite moment was. I think if I can narrow it down, off the top of my head, it would be the LaRusso house fight, the fight at Terry Silver's Cobra Kai, and the last 3 fights of the Sekai Taikai. And if you haven't seen Cobra Kai and have even an inkling of what the Karate Kid was, I think you should give the show a try. It's a really, really fun show, and I think everyone would really enjoy it. Now coming to the channel where this close to 100 subscribers. I know it might seem like a small number, but it gratifies all of the effort that goes into making these videos. The fact that people are watching and subscribing just is so surreal and so cool. So if you haven't, consider subscribing. It's still very awkward asking people to subscribe and like and all of those things. Yeah. But with that, we've reached the end of the video. And all I have to say is, thank you for watching Thought Dump. I am Siddharth Vasu, and I'll see you next time.